Welcome to Deep Treks. I'm Dan Shipton, and we are looking this week at different people who confronted Jesus. And this week we're specifically looking at people from his hometown. Next week we'll probably get into some of the confrontations with more of the Pharisees and the teachers. And so we're returning back to Nazareth and going to chapter 6 today of Mark as we continue our study in Mark leading up to Easter. So, Mark chapter 6, beginning at verse 1, says, "He went away from there and came to his hometown, and his disciples followed him. And on the Sabbath he began to teach in the synagogue. And many who heard him were astonished, saying, 'Where did this man get these things? What is the wisdom given to him? How are such mighty works done by his hand? Is this not the carpenter, the son of Mary, and the brother of James, and Joseph, and Judas, and Simon? And are not his sisters here with us?' And they took offense at him. And Jesus said to them, 'A prophet is not without honor, except in his own hometown, among his relatives, and in his own household.' He could do no mighty works there, except that he laid on hands to a few sick people and healed them. And they marveled because of him, and he marveled at their unbelief. And he went about among the villages teaching." Well, we've been talking this week about the fact that, people confronted him at home. His family confronted him. We talked about yesterday, and we said that Jesus said his family is anybody who believes, anybody who follows, and anybody who is committed to God. That's his true family. And here he's back in his hometown, and he's in the synagogue, and that means on the Sabbath, you go worship and you do things, and here the people are. The men are questioning, who is he? Now, this time we don't see them calling him a demon or anything like we talked about yesterday, but they're just questioning, what power does he have? He's just a carpenter. He's just Mary's son. He's just the brother of. By the way, notice the list of his brothers and sisters here who came to confront him. Now, there's a lot of people who like to argue that Jesus didn't have brothers or sisters, but it's clear he had brothers and sisters. He was probably the oldest of the family. We don't know for sure. There's some argument that maybe Joseph was married before, but I don't think there's any real serious evidence of that. But there is the fact that he has brothers and sisters. Some wonder why, because of this, why John was chosen by Jesus when he's on the cross, and he says to John, "This is your mother," and to his mother, "This is your son." Well, it was the oldest son's responsibility to make sure his mother was taken care of, even if he knew he was dying. And it didn't always fall to the next family member. He literally would appoint somebody he wanted to make sure. Well, by that point in time, Mary was a believer, obviously. She knew all along what was going on, but some of his brothers and sisters weren't to that point. So he wanted to make sure Mary was taken care of by somebody who would take care of her and knew what was going on, by one of the disciples, and John is the one he chose. That's a whole nother story for another day, but I just wanted to clarify that. But what I want us to do is realize, there's an old saying, you can't go home again. Well, the reality is you really can't. Sometimes it's hardest to go back and talk to people who you've known in the past, friends and family and other people. When you start to follow Jesus and you start to tell them you've changed your life, they're looking to trip you up. They're looking to say, "We don't believe you. We knew you when." It's hard for people to change their stripes. It's hard for people to get a new start. And here we see that Jesus is out here. He's the Son of God. He's showing the power. And they're like, "We see these miracles. We see and hear what he's doing. How is he doing all this? What power is he doing it in?" And Jesus just looks around and he just kind of shakes his head and said, "A prophet is not without honor, except in his own hometown." In other words, prophets deserve honor for what they do and who they are. And many people come to them and they want answers from them and they want healings from them, except in his own hometown. His own hometown rejected him. It's kind of a big overarching message, I think, if you really want to get down to it. It's not just about Nazareth. Hometown people rejected who Jesus was, and while the masses were following Jesus, the very people who should have known who he was were the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the teachers of the law, those that were in Jerusalem, and they're the very ones that rejected everything about him. So those who are closest to God should recognize when the Messiah walks on the scene, but they refused because Jesus challenged their view of what they thought Messiah was going to be. He challenged their view of what hope was supposed to be, and they no longer were going to be in power, and that challenged them very deeply. And so he couldn't really go home again, and that's why he said, I'm trying to teach you people, but you're rejecting. We talked a couple of weeks ago about when he was doing healings, about the fact that he came for the sick and not the healthy. He didn't need to come to these religious people. He didn't need to come to his own hometown and preach the truth because they should already have known who he was. But they rejected everything about him. People do that still today. The truth is right in front of them. You read the Bible, and if you take the time to read through, you see the miracles Jesus did. You see the fact that people died for what they believed in him. And these aren't perfect people. That's one of the weird things about the Bible that always stands out to me is God chose average, everyday people from middle-class life to proclaim the gospel. He chose women to proclaim the gospel in a time when women were rejected. He chose all these things that don't make sense. But yet, it's the gospel. And it grows. And here's the truth. We still have that opportunity today to believe or reject, to accept or not accept. But when we accept and we realize who Jesus is, we realize he's the Messiah, he's the hope, he's everything we have. And we can honor Christ. We can praise him for the salvation that we have through him, through his blood shed on a cross, through his resurrection power, and through us becoming one with him. And I hope today you have that. Hope today that you're putting your faith in him as you walk with him. And I hope that you can share your faith, the grace that he gives you, and everything that you have because of everything he's done as you trek this life.
That's today's Devo on Deep Treks. No matter how deep the questions or dark the doubts, there's always a path forward. Reach out at deeptreks.com with prayer needs or topics you'd like us to explore. Keep trekking. Renewal is never far away. Be blessed on the journey and bless others along the way.